the basic income facilities which are being created from agriculture, their things would be gone, right? We have agriculture plus Manrega, which supports the rural economy right now. And when agricultural jobs would be gone, the much of the pressure would be then over the Manrega, right? What we do right now, 120 days of the employment is being provided through Manrega, and rest of it should be bypassed from, or rest of it should be taken up from agriculture. अभी agriculture labors अगर suppress हो जाएंगे तो मनरेगा पे burden बढ़ जाएगा, immediate impact होगा rural population के लिए, right? वो एक problem होगा, right? इंडिया जैसी countries के लिए. Then, but if we understand the very basic nature of the jobs, right? Very basic nature, other nature of the jobs, or the other type of the jobs which are being created, it has been said, or we can look up to, that rather with automation the total number of job hours, they would not be decreased, rather they would be increased. The total number of job hours, they would be increased. There would be a net increase in the job hours for different types of the expertise if they are being created, interaction with the stakeholders, managing and developing people, unprecedented physical activities, processing data, collecting data, predictable physical information related jobs. These all there would be an increase in the total nature of the jobs which should be added because of the automation, right? If you look up to this condition also, the middle wage jobs, the one which we take up as the service sector industry or the service sector related employment, in countries like India, the middle and the lower wage jobs, they would increase, right? Rather the higher wage jobs, they would increase. Of course, there would be an impact over the lower wage jobs, and the lower wage jobs are those physical laborers which are being created, right? And those agricultural workers, they would be impacted on a whole also, right? The net change in the total employment and the education required, if we look up to, then the nature of the jobs that would be created in countries like India, they would require at least a higher secondary level education or an associate level education that would be required. And if education would increase in that scenario, the nature of the jobs, they would also be increased, right? College pass outs or the advanced degrees also, they will see an increase in the overall nature of the jobs that would be created. This is the increase in the nature of the jobs that would be created. अभी जो professionals है advanced, उनका ना change होगा, उनका ना घटेगा, उनका अपना scenario है, right? वो अपने contain करते जाएंगे. जो और सारे हैं जो middle wage jobs हैं जिन पे आपको college या secondary education की ज़रूरत है, वहाँ पर nature of the jobs would increase if the education is also being provided well, right? It is also said that technology in past also, if we look up to, this always has been a particular fear which has been created, that technology when it comes into, it will always create unemployment. Rather in future, in past, if you look up to, when technology was brought in, when computers or computer associated technologies were brought in, then those who have lost the job were the typewriters, the office assistants, or the typewriter related indirect occupations, they were lost, but rest of the jobs, they were increased, like computer scientists, a new nature of the job, like computer software developer, a new nature of the job, assorted managers and administrator, a new nature of the job was created, managers, semiconductor manufacturing operations, printed circuit board assembly, etc., a new nature of the jobs. So rather, if there were 3,500 jobs which were lost, a new job of 19,000, nearly 19,000 were created. That means a net job of 15,755 were created. This is taken up as an example of Germany, just when the computers were brought in. So if artificial intelligence and robotics are brought in, the nature of the jobs or the net number of the jobs, they would not decrease, rather the net number of the jobs would increase in future, right? There must not be any fear. But what would be the scenario? The scenario would be the unorganized, undocumented physical labor will see a larger decrease in the job, and we need to create a subset of the jobs for them, right? A subset of the jobs would be required for such type of the scenario. If you look up to the overall participation or overall increase in the activity of the jobs added, number of activities or the number of hours which are added to the job or to the employment scenario, post the automation in all different sectors, rather there would be an increase in number of hours that would be added. Number of hours added would mean number of amount of money which is being gained, right? In all different scenarios we can find in case of natural language processing, social emotional capabilities, physical capabilities related, cognitive capabilities and sensory perception related jobs, etc. They would always be, the activity hours would be added in all advanced countries, in all intermediate scenarios, also in basic scenarios. There would always be an increase in the total number of hours. There would not be a decrease, right, with the number of or the nature of the jobs. But yes, we need to have a higher skill set in countries like India. If the overall scenario, at least a secondary education is required for increase in the employment section or greater nature of the jobs which should be created. So ये जो हमारे agricultural laborers हैं, जो undocumented और unprecedented या unplanned physical laborers जो कर रहे हैं, या unorganized जो physical labor कर रहे हैं, उनको हमें transform करना पड़ेगा. We will have to provide more sets of the skill, we will have to provide more sets of the education, and when they are being provided skill sets, when they are being given new or the targeted skill set, and we are able to achieve that thing, obviously we would be able to create more nature of the jobs and better nature of the jobs when with the fusion of automation and the physical labor which is being created, right? अभी आपने देखा कोबोट्स बनाते हो, अब कोबोट्स के साथ काम करने के लिए, मोबाइल इंडस्ट्री में काम करने के लिए एटलीस्ट आपके पास एक सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स तो होना चाहिए. अब आप ये सोचो कि आपने 5th क्लास पास की और आपके पास एम्प्लॉयमेंट हो, कैसे होगा? अभी तक तो वही सिनेरियो था, अनएडुकेटेड है, पार्शली एजुकेटेड है, वो एग्रीकल्चर लेबर में लग जाता था, कुछ करने को तो है नहीं और कुछ कर भी सकता है, राइट? That nature of the job would be lost. Rather, there would be a transition in the type of the job. There would not be any loss of the job, or unemployment would not be created. So overall, if we look up to in countries like India, where nearly 5% of the population is over 65%, and 8% of it that would grow up to 8% by 2030. The major unemployment related problems can appear over here. The economic development targeted for another 15 years is at 5.4 to 6% of the GDP would be taken up. Per capita growth would be taken up for the future. Wages would remain at $4,800 average annual wage, which is expected, right, up to 2030. In that scenario, 9% of the current work activity hours would be automated by 2030. There would be a loss of 9% of the total job hours, but another set of the hours would be added over here that we should see over here. That with automation and labor demand catalyst, workers may need to switch occupation. They need to switch occupation. They need to come into better nature of the jobs. And with the agriculture being one of the major employment provider, there would be a decrease in the employment set. There would be a decrease in the country's average also, where we have taken 9% of the jobs would be lost. Rather, in agriculture, there would be 16 to 20% of the jobs that would be lost. Rather, in rest of the other sectors like manufacturing, retail, construction, transportation, government, education, finance, healthcare, accommodation, all of these, we will find there would be an increase in the nature of the jobs. What all we need to do is this, that transition has to be created, that transition has to come in. The number of workers displaced by automation would be 612 millions, but that nature of the job would be created. 60 millions would be displaced, 120 millions would be displaced because of rapid automation if it comes into, right? Rather, the 2 to 3 millions, they will have to change their jobs, and 18 to 38 millions will have changing nature of the jobs that would also be created. So overall, if there would be a loss of employment, the gain of the employment, net loss, if we will see over here, jobs lost, if 57% of them are being lost, then there, or 57 jobs are being lost over here, then rest of them, they would be replaced also. There would be jobs gained, and rather 138 million new workers would be created. A new set of the workers would be created over here in countries like India. That would be very basic thing. That is, the change in the labor force would be seen. This would not be the loss of employment. This would be the change in nature of the employment, right? The growth and decline of occupation types would also be seen, all of them. Rather, if you look up to, then majority of the educations, majority of the employment types, they would see a change, they would see an increase or partial decrease. Like the builders, they will see an increase by say 7 to 8%. Other jobs like environment, machinist, cooks, etc., they will see a decrease of 3%, right? Customer interaction, they would see an increase of 1%. Care providers, they would see an increase of 2%. Other jobs, unpredictable environmental jobs, they will see a loss of -8%, right? They will be farm workers, firefighters, etc. Their jobs would be gone. Educators and librarians, they would see an increase of 1%. तो हम लोग तो safe हैं, right? Okay, managers and executives, they would remain like that. Office staffs, they would remain like that. Professionals, they would remain like that. Technology professionals, they would remain like that itself. They would not be decreased. Just a decrease would be seen in agricultural laborers and agricultural and the farmland laborers. That has to be created, and this would remain one major problem also for countries like India, because majority of the unemployed workforce is associated with the agricultural labor, right? So what should be done in future so that this job nature change or the scenario which has been created in India, if we look up to, all we need to do is that we need to change the education level. We need to develop more new sets of these skills. Secondary level of the education or associated like ITI, etc. must be created. College level education, advanced level education, if it is possible, must be created for a larger section of the society, right? Of course, there would be a change in the nature of the jobs, like the medium wage jobs, they would increase. The low level jobs, they would decrease. And the high level jobs, they would also increase. So it would rather be not an unemployment, rather the transition of the low level jobs to the higher level jobs. This would also mean that with automation, the per capita income would eventually increase. The per capita income would eventually increase, right? That would be one major set of the scenario or advantage that can be driven with the help of robotics, right? So of course, with what should be the way forward if this happens? Governments must make workforce transitions, and job creation should be made at the uttermost priority. Though governments have taken up the initiatives already, the Skill India, if you speak about, or education, or bringing in quality education, or bringing in distance education, all of these are certain initiatives which are already being taken up, right, to displace or to replace or to transit the agricultural laborer jobs to other nature of the jobs. The government has also started up with the various initiatives that can be taken up as startup or other major initiatives that where the small or the medium scale businesses can be started in the rurals also, right? So if they cannot be skilled, they can be supported by the different nature of the employment by initiatives of their own self-employment, which has also been taken up right now, right? Then business leaders, they should also take up an immediate effort towards automation and AI, and a responsible AI must be created. Individuals must prepare for lifelong learning and evolving careers. That should also be one basic thing that should be taken up by the overall scenario of we can say robotics. So if these skill sets are generated, if the government can take this particular thing, that is the job transition properly, there would not be any kind of unemployment which would be generated, rather than job transition that has to be created. But what if the unemployment is being created and job transition is not being done? Then there is one particular scenario which is also being spoken of, that if for all those which would be adversely impacted because of the robotics and automation in future also, right? अभी तो ये दिख रहा है 2030 तक नहीं होगा, लेकिन लॉन्ग रन में हो सकता है. नेचर ऑफ द जॉब्स तो चेंज होंगे, लेकिन उसका भी एक सैचुरेशन पॉइंट होगा. There would be a saturation for the nature and the type of the jobs that can be created in future, right? To replace the overall advancements in robotics, etc. Now, in future, if this would happen post 2030, अभी तो बोलते हैं कि चलो इंक्रीज होगा सारा, लेकिन आगे जाके डिक्रीज हो सकता है, क्योंकि ऑटोमेशन तब जब एडवांस ऑटोमेशन में हम जाएंगे. अभी तो मिड पॉइंट ऑटोमेशन है, थोड़ा बहुत ऑटोमेशन कर दिया जहां जहां पे हो सकता है. एडवांस ऑटोमेशन है, एडवांस रोबोटिक्स में जाओगे तब ज्यादा अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट हो सकता है उस सिनेरियो में. देन व्हाट शुड बी द बेसिक थिंग? देयर इज अ सॉल्यूशन व्हिच इज बीन क्रिएटेड दैट इफ अ लार्ज स्केल, जैसे अभी आप और कंट्रीज में देखो, एडवांस कंट्रीज में यूएस, जर्मनी, यूके, यहाँ पर तो 25 से लेके 40% तक अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट होगा. चाइना में तो 67% तक एम्प्लॉयज दे वुड लूज देयर जॉब्स, राइट? तो ये सिनेरियो इंडिया में भी होगा कहीं ना कहीं जाके। अभी 40% ऑफ देम दे विल लूज देयर जॉब्स, स्पेसिफिकली एग्रीकल्चरल लेबर्स एटसेट्रा, दे विल लूज देयर जॉब्स। ऑब्वियसली फाइन, क्योंकि हमारा इंडस्ट्रियल रिवोल्यूशन इतना हाई नहीं है, इंडस्ट्रियल लेबर्स भी हमारे उतने हाई नहीं, तो नेचर ऑफ द जॉब्स तो जाएगा नहीं ऑटोमेशन से, फाइन, हम उसको ट्रांजिट कर लेंगे। लेकिन एग्रीकल्चरल वर्कर्स को हमें ट्रांजिट करना पड़ेगा इनटू द न्यू नेचर ऑफ द जॉब। वी हैव टू प्रोवाइड न्यू स्किल सेट्स, education etc. has to be created, and then the job creation must be done. That all would be created, that all can be created. But what if the type of the work which is being created or type of the unemployment is generated because of the advanced automation, which can be post 2030, 2035, if it happens, then what should be the scenario? Then it is being said that there must be a robotic tax that should be created. Robotic tax would be a tax or an incentive taken out, or a tax taken out from all those sectors which has opted on to automation, right? So tax over automation must be created. That has been taken up as one priority thing, right? That would be called as robot tax, and that would be taken up as a people's fund, where a universal basic income or a social dividend can be provided to the society for all those who will lose the job from the robotics, right? If there would be an technological unemployment, then from the robotics tax, from the industries, the universal basic income must be generated, or a social dividend must be created to counter the technological unemployment. That has been taken up as the futuristic scenario that can be taken up. Obviously that will help to counter the problems, because the elderlies, जो मिड एज ग्रुप्स हैं, वो अपना जॉब लूज करेंगे तो उसका इम्पैक्ट होगा। जैसे अभी वर्कफोर्स ट्रांजिशन होगा तो there would be a new set of the rules or the employment rules that would also be created in automation and labor scenario, right? And then if say a particular person is at the age of 45 or 50, who has transited into a new nature of the job, has worked for another 10 years, right? Post its retirement, what would be its security, right? What would be its social security also? What would be its financial security? That should also be taken up. So elderlies or those who will who has lost their job because of this, if there is a technological unemployment, elderlies or children of those who have lost their job because of the technological unemployment, all of them, they can be supported with the universal basic income. This will be simple and efficient to administer. It would avoid poverty trap and in fact for all those who have lost their jobs. It would reduce inequality and poverty and homelessness that can be created. ये ethical scenario जो हमने पहले एक concern बात की थी ना, technological unemployment होगा तो उससे poverty हो सकता है। Universal basic income, technology से ही आप tax निकालो, tax से ही आप उसके benefits को निकालो, right? It would encourage socially beneficial tasks such as old age care, etc. That can also be taken up. It would encourage the individuals to take risk and set up businesses also, if the universal basic income is being provided. So all new sets of the businesses can also be generated. But there would be problems with this robotic tax and universal basic income. Universal basic income is not always full-fledged, right? We can create national basic income, but there is always a particular scenario associated with this. This universal basic income always remains fixed. बहुत आगे जाके सिनेरियो, अभी जैसे एग्रीकल्चर में यूनिवर्सल बेसिक इनकम या नेशनल बेसिक इनकम हमने बनाया, सोशल डिविडेंड एग्रीकल्चरल लेबरर्स के लिए एक सेट ऑफ मनी वुड बी गिवन ईयरली, एंड दैट इज फिक्स्ड. But inflation is constantly increasing. The prices of the agricultural commodities are constantly increasing. The prices of the agricultural raw materials also are constantly increasing. Whether that universal basic income would be sufficient enough to suffice the needs or demands of the agriculture or of the farmer, that will always be a question mark, right? Fertilizer का price बढ़ गया, आपका basic income तो नहीं बढ़ा. Pipeline जो खरीदते हैं irrigation के लिए उसका price बढ़ गया, लेकिन basic income तो नहीं बढ़ा. सीड जो खरीद के लाते हैं उसका प्राइस बढ़ गया, लेकिन बेसिक इनकम तो नहीं बढ़ा. तो क्या हुआ? इन्फ्लेशन तो वैसे ही है. तो आपने यूनिवर्सल बेसिक इनकम भी दे दिया, एक्स्ट्रा बर्डन भी डाल दिया इकोनॉमी पे, सोशल डिविडेंड तो क्रिएट कर दिया, बट यू हैव नॉट सफाइज्ड the actual need, right? This always remains fixed. मतलब जो पुअर होगा वो हमेशा पुअर ही रहेगा. आप उसको इनकम भी दे रहे हो, but then too there would not be any alleviation of the poverty, right? So that would also remain the same because inflation is increasing. Inflation of the goods and commodities, it is constantly increasing, and the basic income would remain fixed. So the survivability of the person would not always be similar in that case, right? So the basic cons over there, it would encourage laziness also. People would be lazy. अरे पैसा तो आ रहा है, क्यों कमाना है, क्यों कुछ करना है, right? This will discourage the part-time work scenario also. Basic income मिल गया, उतने में चलाते हैं. 5,000 मिल रहा है, ठीक है, उसी में चला लेंगे. इंडियंस वैसे भी बहुत माहिर हैं एडजस्ट करने के लिए. 5,000 में भी एडजस्ट कर लेंगे, कोई दिक्कत नहीं, राइट? पर काम नहीं करेंगे तो ये क्या होगा? ये तो और बड़ा प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगा. आपका डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड इटसेल्फ वुड बी लॉस्ट, और यू वुड प्ले अपॉन विद द डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड इन फ्यूचर, एंड यू विल ब्रिंग अबाउट मोर लेजी demographics also, right? The higher cost than the current benefit leading to higher taxes also, though the amount of tax. अब अगर हमको इन्फ्लेशन को काउंटर करना है तो हम क्या करेंगे? टैक्स बढ़ाएंगे. टैक्स बढ़ाएंगे तो इंडस्ट्रीज काउंटर होंगी जो रोबोटिक्स की तरफ जा रहे हैं. वो क्या करेंगे? रोबोटिक ऑटोमेशन को ऑप्ट ही नहीं करेंगे, तो ऑटोमेशन का सिनेरियो ही नहीं बढ़ेगा, राइट? इसका बाईपास ये भी, इसका बाइफर्केशन या इसका जो बैकवर्ड इम्पैक्ट है वो ये भी हो सकता है. Higher income taxes would also lead to disincentives in the works relative to robotics and could lead to welfare support of the undesirables also, like criminals. अब ये जैसे अब यूनिवर्सल बेसिक इनकम में मिल रहा है, लेजीनेस है, काम कुछ करना नहीं है, तो क्या करोगे? क्राइम करोगे. हो सकता है क्राइम करोगे तो फिर आप किसको इंसेंटिव दे रहे हो? क्रिमिनल को इंसेंटिव दे रहे हो. ये हमेशा एक क्वेश्चन मार्क होगा. सो रादर देन creating universal basic income, we must create universal basic dividend, or a universal basic opportunity fund must be created, right? Universal basic dividend must be created. Rather than basic income, rather than creating a tax, create more opportunities of robotics, automation, right? Bring in more profits and provide the profit share. As the profits would increase, the profit share would also increase, so the basic income of the people who have received where the benefits are to be given, they would be taken up. So rather than universal basic income, universal basic dividends they must be given, and they must be created as a universal basic opportunity fund, right? That can be taken up, and that will help the citizens. That will also help in providing the equity and investments and the public investments. Rather than providing the basic income, help them set up new sets of the employment generation tendencies. That can be taken up, right? तो क्या होगा? इंडस्ट्री से आप इंडस्ट्री को ऑटोमेशन करने दो, रोबोट्स को लाने दो, अपनी एफिकेसी बढ़ाने दो, बिजनेस बढ़ाने दो, उससे जो प्रॉफिट बनेगा, rather than the tax, you share the profit. That would be taken up as the basic dividend, and that basic dividend would then be socially distributed as a social dividend for improvement in employment generation tendencies. Self-employment can come in over here out of this, right? So rather than providing a tax, rather than providing a basic income, rather than making people lazy, rather than making people criminals also, give them the opportunities to explore something more. That will help with the economy also, and that would also not create an additional burden over the industries, and people would not be demotivated. Rather, the industries would be motivated enough to create more and more opportunities, more and more dividend. So a social dividend out of the benefits of the industry can be generated. That should be taken up in the future, and that should be the way forward also for robotics and automation, etc. This is all about robotics. We have seen an extensive and elaborated part of it. Thank you very much for your patience.